Hey, good morning, girl. The time is 16 March. Actually, that's the date, 16 March 2019. And boy, let me tell you, it is a beautiful day outside. Oh my gosh, it is so gorgeous. It's like 72 degrees outside. And I am actually really looking forward to going outside, spending some time out there. I'm not out there right now. I'm indoors, but I'll get out there somehow, some way. I'll figure out a way to get outdoors today. In fact, I've got quite a number of tasks on my to-do list that I want to get complete today. One of them is getting an oil change on my car, and let's see. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff I want to do. I just bought my plane tickets to visit my family in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So that's pretty wonderful. I'm excited about that. And guess what? I am not at an amusement park this weekend. Boy, that's surprising. I know. I've been to amusement parks like every week for the last like 3 weeks, and for every weekend for the last 3 weeks. And I really do need a kind of a break to sort through my life, get my life sorted. There's at the end of a week, after a week where I work full time and I go to school, night school, that doesn't leave a lot of time for me to organize my place and just get done all the little itty bitty stuff that I need to get done. And thankfully, I have weekends, and I basically chose to stay home this weekend. Um, it's kind of funny. I have a real strong urge to continuously do stuff, and I also have a lot of great habits related to the things that I do. Like on weekends, I like to walk for long distances, whether it's at an amusement park or say any park or just along the street, along the sidewalk. For me, walking is about exercise, it's about enjoying the day. I love it. So, though the difficulty though is finding time to go on long walks, right? It's the same for people who like to hike. There are a lot of hikers out there. I'm kind of an urban hiker. I'm not necessarily a kind of hiker that walks into the forest and just can continue to walk aimlessly, or maybe even walk um, on trails. I'm mostly an urban hiker. For me, it's all about walking on sidewalks and roadways and things like that, not on, say, unmarked trails or even any trails at all. It's just a preference I have. Um, you know, there are fewer tripping hazards. There are fewer chances that I'll walk into a mountain lion. There has been some like mountain lion attacks lately in the local area. Not that I pay attention to that stuff because I really don't, but because I'm mostly an urban walker, right? I certainly care for the people who've been accosted by mountain lions. In fact, there was this one guy. He A mountain lion attacked him, and he counterattacked, and well, he ended up winning. And I mean, it's tragedy. It's tragedy to lose a mountain lion like that. But again, it's also tragedy for a mountain lion to attack a runner. Anyway, I'm glad I was far, far away from that event when it happened. Now, I don't know how local that story was. It may not have been that local. Like, I'm not sure if it was even in Santa Barbara County. But anyway, as an urban hiker, my interest is in taking photographs, or really just enjoying the area and not tripping over roots or rocks, or not fording through streams. It's kind of funny. I read books. about adventurers who spend a lot of time fording springs, fording streams, but that's just not necessarily my cup of tea. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are highly stimulated by the idea of fording a stream, and I can only imagine how fascinating and interesting it is to do such a thing. And maybe I will do it in the future somehow. Who knows? I am open to it, but it's not something that I plan as part of my day. It's not part of my leisure activity, right? I don't recreate and plan on fording a stream or a river or anything like that. What can I say? I'm tame. I'm tame. I'm a city guy. I'm a city boy. I'm not necessarily one to go out into nature and spend a long time in nature, mainly because I recognize that nature is all around. You know, nature's everywhere. In fact, I, as a human being, am part of nature. I am nature. I am natural. I'm as natural as they get. I'm a living being on the planet Earth, part of the biosphere. In fact, there isn't anything I do that's unnatural. I mean, the definition of natural is what's going on right here, right in front of you. So I don't have to walk in nature because I continuously walk in nature every moment of my day. Profound. So I wonder how you're doing, Emily. I wonder what's going on in your life. I know we recently had a text conversation. You let me know that you were baking some bread because you bake bread, I guess, on the weekends, and you use that bread to make sandwiches all throughout the week, which is fantastic. What a wonderful practice. So glad you're doing something like that. Making your own bread is such a good idea. It's first of all, you get to control the ingredients in your bread, right? You can half the sugar if you want, or double the salt. Add chocolate chips. I think adding chocolate chips would be a great thing to do. You can add cinnamon and raisins, and wow. And not only that, but you get a really strong sense of accomplishment, right? You made your bread. You baked your own bread. I mean, that's a baker at work. And you get the pleasure of experiencing the smells of the bread as it bakes. You also, not only do you have the control over the bread, but you get to just sort of experience bread, say, hot out of the oven, which is a wonderful experience. I personally love to bake. In fact, I baked a cake earlier in the week. I sent you a photograph of it. That was the Gottman cake. I piped the name Gottman on it using a frosting piping kit that I bought. And I'm loving this idea of piping frosting on my cakes. And I'm going to be doing it more and more often. I'm sort of filled with all kinds of creative ideas about how I can artistically decorate cakes and cupcakes. And that's exciting to me right now. So anyway, I'm excited that you are preparing your own bread and making your own sandwiches. I mean, that sounds fantastic. It's healthy, it's a creative pursuit. And, I can imagine that it's something that you might keep up for the rest of your life. It's a great practice. And, you'll get better and better and better. And who knows, maybe you will even become a chef when you grow up. An amazing chef like, I don't know. Maybe you'll host. Be a chef that hosts on the Food Network on cable television. I don't think that cable television will even exist in 10 years. I'm serious. I think it's going to go the way of Blockbuster Video. No, I don't know, of course. I have a feeling it may stick around. You know, the demographics might change and cable might only be really happening amongst, say, the over 50 crowd or the over 80 crowd. Isn't it interesting how technology changes? I think there was a special on television that discussed the last Blockbuster Video, which was a retail outlet that rented videos. It was an economic model that was really popular back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Not popular anymore. In fact, there are very few video rental stores, just like there are very few bookstores. The economy continuously changes. In fact, speaking of a continually changing economy, I've been thinking about the future of jobs, the future of relationships, the future of the environment. You know, there is a part of me that likes to look into the future, to peer into what might be the case. And I have a feeling that there are some major changes happening in our society. For example, I've spoken to you about autonomous vehicles. I'm excited about those vehicles coming online and making it safer for everyone to drive on the roads. Hand over that responsibility to a computer and artificial intelligence. Yeah, that sounds like a great solution. But there are also risks where, golly, all those drivers, like the truck drivers and the taxi drivers, well, they'll probably end up losing their jobs. There are other changes afoot. I know that there was this idea of a CRISPR baby, right? Genetically modified babies coming online. I forget where it happened the first time. It may have happened in China. Anyway, as you can tell, I'm really not following that case very closely. But I do think that genetic engineering and genetic modification, it will definitely be the future of how people have children. Uh, Probably in the short term, probably within the next 30 years, it'll be very commonplace. Maybe even 20 years, who knows? Probably, I'm guessing that there will be screening techniques that will genetically screen babies real early so that we can plan on how to manage the issues as they arise. So other changes in the future. Now, here's a change that I've been thinking about lately, and it has to do with the continuous change of relationships uh, as a result of the impact of social media and economy and the communication age. Websites like YouTube and all kinds of things. And here is this preliminary conclusion that I've come to right now. I think that the end of all relationships is nigh. I know I'm not normally a doomsayer because I'm absolutely 100% an optimist when it comes to the future. But I am seeing this decline of relationships. Relationships are so different than they were just 30 years ago. Um, and I'm talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about friendships too. I know, I know. Um, so I'm seeing a lot of changes in the social landscape. Now, also recognize that I'm a person who does a lot of focusing on psychology and communication. And so this is an area where I have a lot of interest. This is just a sort of a personal enthusiast type interest. I really think that relationships may go the way of the dodo bird. Why would I think such a thing? Well, I don't know. I think that they're going to change drastically in the future. There's so many people. We're interacting with screens more than we're interacting with other people right now. I mean, I of course am interacting with you right now, and I'm interacting through a screen. Um, and in fact, pretty much everyone I know interacts with other people through screens most of the time. And I have, uh, you know, I've went over to Lloyd and Suzanne Shank's home a couple days ago. maybe it was last weekend, and they introduced me to some virtual reality headset manufactured by the Samsung Corporation, which was amazing. I had an amazing experience, and I thought that VR was, my brain had a hunger for experiencing more VR. I wanted to experience more VR. Now, that's not to say there weren't any drawbacks. I mean, I was getting like some eye strain as I was continuing to use the VR, and there were other aspects that were a challenge. Like I had to do a lot of sitting down. The controls were sometimes complicated. I had trouble sort of making all the adjustments that I needed to make while in the virtual world. And I have a feeling that these problems will be overcome and overcome quickly. There were issues related to power cords of the various screens I was using, and anyway, issues related to powering the sort of the how would you call it, the like the remote control, the control panel. Anyway, I have a feeling that even those issues will be resolved and resolved relatively quickly. And I thought it was curious about how my own brain responded. Like it really wanted to experience more of a virtual reality environment. Why? I'm not sure. My brain found it curious, right? My brain loves screens, right? It loves the data from coming in from screens. So it's kind of interesting that computers and video games and even VR has this almost addictive quality to it. And it seems like it has so much power that it overrides even face to face communication. I know there's something safe about virtual reality. There's something functional, efficient, novel. I think it might just be novelty. There's something, there's some, I feel like I'm a little bit more in control. I feel like there is less risk in a virtual world. So, there are a lot of there are all these factors that make it easy for me to interact in the virtual world and crave the further interaction. So, now I don't know how many of our human relationships take place where a screen is the interface, where's the primary interface. But I have a feeling that percentage time is very high. Already, I'm thinking that probably people interact with other people on the order of 50% of the time instead of screen. They interact through screens with other people 50% of the time, and they interact with people, and this is for all interactions, the other 50% of the time. Now, I just sort of put together and made up those numbers because I don't really know what the real numbers are. But I have a feeling that it's significant. I have a feeling too that the only people on, say, in first world countries that have access to the internet and that have your common smartphone, laptop, or computer type interfaces, I have a feeling that already screens have taken over as mediators between face-to-face conversing, um, face-to-face communicators. Wow. And I have a feeling it's only going to get worse in the sense that in a very short time, 5 to 10 years, I have a feeling that it's going to be like 80% of our interactions will be with screens instead of people. And I think about the implications of this change. So drastic. What it means is the end of face to face relationships as we know it. Wow. And you know what? There are, there's a loss associated with that, but there are also benefits. Imagine being able to interact with any personality on the planet at will, anytime, as long as I want. Um, That's fantastic. You know, half of being a human being is seeking out partners to, work with, right? And a lot of the trouble in relationships is just mismatches, right? Imagine a world where there are no personality mismatches. That's feasible in a world of VR, where we can pick and choose our interacting partners um, easier than ever before. We can choose people who exist on the opposite side of the planet and interact with them through VR. We can even interact with people who aren't real through artificial intelligence. So I have a feeling that screen interactions are going to get easier, quicker, more efficient and effective, and the old-fashioned face-to-face relationships are just going to go away. We've already seen it too in the case of just the marriage and divorce rate, particularly the marriage rate. Well, the marriage rates are decreasing, and the divorce rates are increasing. I mean, if you just forecast those trends 10, 20, 30, 40 years into the future, man, it looks pretty dismal. The old ways are being shaken off very quickly. Now, I don't want to characterize it negatively because, like I mentioned, I'm an eternal optimist. And I think there will be significant benefits. I mean, these changes aren't happening for no reason, right? These changes are happening, in my opinion, for really good reasons. There's a lot of pain associated with personality mismatches, incompatibility. Imagine all those problems going away. I mean, it's a wonderful to even consider the idea that that is a possibility. Um, but it's not going to come without little change. It will be coming with lots of change. So anyway, I am interested in sort of thinking more about the end of relationships, just as I'm also interested in thinking about the end of jobs as we know it, as they're being automated by robots and artificial intelligence. So yeah, um, you know, the way I see it is that in 50, 100 years, there will be no jobs. People won't do work, and people won't be interacting with other people face to face. There will be other changes too. People will not be driving their own cars for certain. Um, and people also won't be having. I mean, they'll be kind of having their own children, but I have a feeling that even child rearing, even the what I'd call like the procreating um, part of human societies, I think is going to be delegated to, say, the government or a corporation or some external agency. Because let me tell you, one of the hardest things to do in this life is to raise a child. It's expensive. It takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of maturity to do it well. It takes a lot of money, and human beings are lazy, and they want to innovate and find new ways to make it easier. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if people could have children and it wouldn't be a hassle, it wouldn't be a problem? You could have like 100 of them and it would be like no big deal. I think that's where what culture in the world is coming to eventually. We're going to solve the problem. Just like we solve problems related to scarcity in electricity, right? Or we solved problems related to problems with transportation, getting from point A to point B. We've largely figured that problem out through vehicles like cars and boats and trains and planes. We figured that out. It used to be hard. I'm still imagining Manifest Destiny, when people from the East Coast traveled in their horse-drawn carriages from the East Coast to the West Coast to California during the gold rush, right? That was hard. It was hard living, and there people made a lot of sacrifices to get out here, and travel was difficult. It took weeks and months to get to where you were trying to go. Today, solved. I can go from coast to coast in 4 hours. Not a problem. And I can do so economically. Maybe it wouldn't even cost me $300, which is like 4 hours of work at a workplace or something like that. It's very maybe 8 hours depending on what your level of pay, but still, or maybe maybe 20 hours, maybe 40 hours depending on your level of pay. So my point here is that the problem, in fact, really, it's not controversial to say that today some of the biggest problems are: number one, relationships, personal relationships; number two, work; number three, politics. I mean, I'm not saying anything that's particularly difficult to sort of accept. Raising children, right? I have a feeling that all of these areas of life are going to be automated, computerized. They will be modified by technology, by changes in culture, and they'll either go away or be delegated to robots and AI. And those problems will essentially be solved. That's right. In the future, there will be no divorces because there will be no face-to-face relationships. Hooray! Oh, really? Is that the exchange? Okay, so in the future, no one will have to go to work. No one will have to go to work. Hooray! And there will be no jobs. Oh, no jobs. How am I gonna how am I gonna pay for my food? How am I gonna earn a living? So, in the future, um, no one no one parent-child relationships will be a snap. Hooray! And no one will ever have a child. I know. We'll all have CRISPR babies, and the babies will all be healthy. Hooray! But then nobody's genes. The children will not arise from parents. I know. Oh, really? I'm not so sure. I think that's a good idea. So yeah, I know it's kind of future. That's fun. That's how the future is going to happen. It's just going to be, wow. Oh yeah, we're going to have fun all the time. In the future, we're going to be able to play games anytime we want for as long as we want, and we will be completely engrossed and passionate about what we do every second of the day because it will have huge meaning. We'll have meaning, we'll be satisfied, we'll be happy all the time. And we will be a brain in a vat. Oh, really? A brain in a vat? Is that what we're going to be? I think that's the way of the future. And when I say the future, I'm not talking 10,000 years in the future. I'm not even talking 1,000 years in the future. Nope. I am also not even talking 100 years in the future. I'm not talking 100 years in the future. I'm saying there's going to be CRISPR babies, no jobs, autonomous artificial intelligence between 20 and 50 years. What? That's right. No face-to-face relationships within 20 to 50 years. That's what I said, bro. Yeah. I know. I know. And here's the thing. There's a good chance I might live to see it. I still have the way I figure. And I'm not the healthiest person on the planet. But the way I figure that I'll be alive when a lot of these changes happen, that I've got a good 40 years to go before uh, to watch these changes take place in society. I think they are going to be profound. Uh, just huge these huge swells of change, and that um, every aspect of our society will be altered. Our political systems will be altered. We're going to have a president that's going to be made of artificial intelligence. We're going to have AI government, man. And the in fact, it won't. We won't even have states. We'll have. It'll just be compute. It'll be a global, and it won't. We won't even call it government, folks. It's just going to be our the way of organizing our world. There will be no more governments in the world. We'll just be have a way of organizing our world. We'll have an organizing relationships, interdependent ones. There will be no more governments, um, and it'll be organized through artificial intelligence. An artificial intelligence that is literally a million times more intelligent than human beings today. I know. I know. And and this will probably happen within the next 100 years. I know. I know. I know. How exciting. Yeah, there's going to be huge changes. Pretty amazing. Yeah, instantaneous communication. It's just gonna it's all gonna be there. And regrettably, I'm probably gonna miss a big part of that. Like I'm only gonna live 40 more years, and that's if I'm lucky. That's if yeah, if I'm lucky, I'll live 40 more years. I don't know if they'll be able to transfer my brain from my skull into a vat in time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not so confident that in 40 years we'll have that brain and vat technology mastered. So it's kind of going to be the end of my personality. But anyway, perhaps through these videos that I'm making every day, um, maybe there will be a part of me that lives on. Maybe there will be some artificial intelligence that is able to recreate Miguel, and I'll live on in some way in the future, and I will sire a million children. You see, even those values aren't going to make any sense in the future. There will be no such thing. It's really amazing. Have you ever read The Time Machine? Um, who wrote that book? I think it was Jules Verne. I could be mistaken. But I read the book The Time Machine, and it talked a little bit about this. But you know what? I think the vision of the writer was limited. Um, Certainly, my vision is, I think, larger than even the Time Machine author was. The Time Machine authors, and I'm thankfully informed by um, hundreds of other writers. I'm also informed by trends that I'm seeing today in culture and technology. These are things that I guess Jules Verne, didn't have access to. Hey Google, who wrote The Time Machine?
H.G. Wells wrote The Time Machine, Hindi edition.
Of course. Hey, who? How many books did Jules Verne write? Oh, okay. Eventually, artificial intelligence will be fantastic, but that's actually a great response. H.G. Wells. So yeah, I read that book by H.G. Wells. No, I think eight. Hey Google, when was H.G. Wells alive? What were his birth and death dates?
On the website biography.com, they say he died on August 13th, 1946, in London. Do you want a little more context?
No.
No problem.
So 1946 is when he died. So that was about what, 50, wow, 70 years ago. So I've got a good 70 years on Mr. H.G. Wells, who I respect, by the way. He wrote a fantastic book, and I really enjoyed reading it. Speaking of classic authors, I recently finished reading or listening to the audiobook The Call of the Wild by Jack London, and that was a fantastic book. Loved it. And I'm looking forward to perhaps reading White Fang as well. I'll get to it when I get to it. I've got a few other books that's sort of in the hopper right now. I'm going through Little Women, and I might even be going through Beowulf and others right now. So I've got a number of other books that I'm working on. I wish I could just read faster. Why can't I read 1,000 words a minute and read that for 7 days straight? Oh man. In the future, they'll probably have brain implants and I can implant that info in my brain, and that'll be nice. I'm looking forward to brain implants. That's for sure. In the future, it may be just that AI does all my thinking for me and I don't need a brain implant. That's probably what'll happen. I'll ask for a training session, and the AI will train me up on a certain subject area and will give me tests, and I'll know what I need to know in a matter of an hour. Right. So that's the future, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know about that. I'd let you in on some of my forecasts. We'll see if any of them come true. So, anyway, I might as well move on to the next subject. And that is that I recently read a book by M.G. Ryan called Patience. And I've got the book right here. Um, and here it is. Oh my gosh, I found it right here. And I'm on chapter 1, which is the Patience Creates Excellence chapter. And I highlighted this page at location 320. The page reads, I've not failed 700 times. I've not failed once. I've succeeded in proving that those 700 ways will not work. When I have eliminated the ways that will not work, I will find the way that will work. Now, I think that's a quote or a paraphrase of Thomas Edison, who is a hero, an absolute hero, because, um, you know, and it may not have been him, but maybe he was the organizing factor, or even if he wasn't the organizing factor, at least that's the only name I know about. In a way, sort of started, and he might not have started the technical revolution or the industrial revolution, but he had a lot of amazing inventions: the telephone, the phonograph, so many things that really got the ball rolling to until this point. So anyway, I really appreciate the his patient stance, and that is, you can. It's not that he had 700 failures; it's that he learned 700 new things about what didn't work. And it's kind of funny. I I wish I had more patience myself. I have a feeling that if I would just be a little bit more patient, then I would get upset a whole lot less often, and my upset would be not as prolonged. There's something about patience. I don't know. In a way, there's patience is wonderful. But there's also a problem with patience. What's the problem with patience? Well, the problem is you may never achieve your goals. You may never get what you want, and that's a problem. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on your perspective about whether that's a problem or not. Um, Human beings are always trying to optimize their values, right? Certain baskets of values. And I guess the fact is that if you don't get what you want, what the default version is to sort of emphasize other values in the meantime, right? And in fact, you may get to a point where you can only emphasize other values because the value that you sought somehow doesn't exist anymore because so much time has passed that that opportunity has completely vanished, right? And so, what is it? I mean, I guess there is an element, patience and acceptance sort of run on the same continuum. Um, you know, in fact, I would guess that those who are the least patient are also the ones who are least accepting. And the ones that are the most patient are the ones that are the most accepting. So, woo, wow, that's a powerful realization. What I like about that realization is that, if you ever thought that you wanted to be more accepting about your present moment reality, then you can use patience to get there. That's if you wanted to be more accepting of your patient, which is a great idea if you want to be at peace. In fact, really, that's essentially the roadmap to acceptance. And that is to continuously foster patience. Yeah, but it also, of course, might mean that you never get what you want. Now, in fact, that's an interesting question. What if nobody ever got what they wanted? For some subgroups, that's totally true. um, that's the reality. And various subgroups get different variations of what they want. You know, it's actually kind of interesting. It raises a good question. Could you be okay with that? You know, is there a way to be infinitely accepting of the world? And what does that even mean? And can you be happy and infinitely accepting at the same time? You know, in an ideal world, that's probably true. But in the real world, I'm not so sure it is. Well, it certainly, I don't know. Here's the thing about human beings. Human beings are black holes of need, want, and desire. It's just what human beings are. We're just total black holes. We continuously want and need stuff. When we don't get what we want or need, then, well, the fact is we have no choice but patience. You know, that's on the way to acceptance. And when our patience is infinite, then acceptance has been achieved. you know so you know how do we negotiate this? How do we work with this idea? um, I recognize that patience is extremely important. um, and almost what the question that arises in my mind is, how do we decide what to want? And the magnitude that we want it. It's not like people, I guess people do choose about what they want. And I think they also choose about the intensity that they want it. Um, Fact is, you can't always get what you want. And so, given that, you know, there is, acceptance in a way is built into our reality. It's built in. And here's an example. I want to live forever, and somehow I've got to come to grips with the fact that I will not live forever, right? I've got to sort of accept it. And, you know, I want to live forever now. And I, I could get really upset about not knowing how to live forever right now. I could get infinitely upset about that issue. I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna live forever. Um, so, but if I had just a modicum of patience, maybe I'd be less reactive, acknowledging the fact that I won't live forever. And maybe that's good. On some level, I'm sure there are lots of ways to interpret um, the acceptance of one's own mortality. Though, I mean, if you did, chances are you might be at least give yourself room to be relatively happy in spite of not getting what you want. And, if that is the goal, then, at least you've achieved that much, right? Which is impressive. you know, Human beings, it's kind of funny how unaccepting we are. Human beings are actually rather judgmental. It's just how our brain works, right? We have certain ideas and ideals about the way the world ought to work and should work and must work and shall work. But, you know, when do when do we ever really get satisfaction when it comes to that? It's just built into reality. Yeah, it's just built in. It's just built in, Em. So, what is my advice to you in the face of the fact that, the things that you want, um, at some point in the future, you'll just have to accept the way the world is, even if you'd rather not. What do I say about that? I would say, welcome to the human condition. Welcome to the same boat that we're all in. And when I say we're all in, I mean everybody is in the same boat. Everybody wants $1 million, and they want it now. Everyone wants to live forever, and they want assurance now. You know, Everybody wants infinite intelligence. Sure, why not? Infinite creativity. Whoa, that'd be amazing. Infinite life. But nobody anytime soon is going to get any of those things. And so, on some level, we just all have to accept it. Yeah. It's kind of sad. We all want these things, we don't get them. And so there's this feeling of loss, right? Like this, we had a longing for it, a deep, sincere longing to live forever. One that's highly justified. I've got a lot of good reasons I'd love to live forever. I'd love to save more money. I'd love to be happy more often. I'd love to get to know my grandchildren and my grandchildren's children. Lots of great reasons. And it'll never be true. You know, if I exhibit patience, then maybe I can, you know, be resilient enough to move on to the next phase or page of my life. despite not getting what I want, and not having that sort of affect me negatively in the future, right? You know, a big part of life is just learning to accept what can't happen, just like learning to accept reality. You know, human beings are continuously let down. We're continuously rejected by the people who we love. We're continuously rejected by people we don't love. We're continuously rejected by people who we don't know. If you ever thought about it, this is a world of what, 8 billion people, maybe 7 billion people. And I might go through an entire day not speaking to another person. On some level, I've been rejected by 8 billion people. I kid you not. Of all those people, not one wanted to reach out to me and have a conversation. I think that's significant to be rejected by 8 billion people on the planet. Hey, Google, how many people on planet Earth?
The population of Earth was 7.53 billion in 2017.
Okay, 7.53 billion. So, on those days when I crave human interaction and a full day goes by without any human interaction, essentially I've been uh, ignored by 7.5 billion people. Now, I know, here's the thing. Not only am I an optimist, but I'm also a positive thinker. And the only reason I bring that idea up is because, number one, it's really funny. Um, at least it's funny to me. Um, and I think there's something to learn about it, right? If you think about it too, I don't know how many aliens there are on other planets, but if you ask any scientist, I have a feeling that they'll say something like at least a million alien civilizations, or let's be a little more realistic, at least 10, right? So if I go through an entire day wanting to speak to someone and then not speaking to someone, it's as if I've been rejected by every alien civilization. They haven't reached out to me, man. Yeah. And we all have to accept this. We all have to accept our mortality. We accept how no one wants to talk to us. Human beings are in such a sad state. Um, really, those ideas only have meaning if you attribute true meaning to them, right? The truth is that they're just fanciful musings, you know. And so thankfully, I mean, it's not really true. It's just a fanciful musing. Oh boy. I'm yawning. So let's get back to that book. Why don't we? This is Patience by M.G. Ryan. And let's see. I want to move along to location 232 or 323, where I highlighted this passage. The passage reads, at the core of every true latent, sorry, I need my reading glasses. At the core of every true talent, there is an awareness of the difficulties inherent in any achievement, and the confidence that by persistence and patience, something worthwhile will be realized. Thus, talent is a process or a species of vigor, by George Louis Leclerc de Buffon. Let me read that quote again. That was a deep quote. At the core, all right, there's some core. At the core of every true talent, there's an awareness of the difficulties inherent in any achievement, and the confidence that by persistence and patience, something worthwhile will be realized. Thus, talent is a species of vigor. George Louis Leclerc de Buffon. So this is talking about persistence and perseverance, and that, Anyone who has a talent knows that success is not instantaneous. The assumption is that there is work to be done and that it takes time and patience to get it done. You know, nothing on this planet is instantaneous. Even the speed of light, while rather fast, is still finite at 3 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. So, what does that mean for us? Well, it's really just about acknowledging that life takes effort, right? It takes energy. There are no free meals. There's no free lunch, you know, and that makes sense. Well, it's just real. It's just real, man. Things take work. They take energy to complete. Relationships take work. Staying above ground takes work, right? I've got to eat 3 meals a day. I've got to transport myself to work. Somehow I've got to manage the house that I live in, which has a tendency to fall apart, right? I'm doing laundry and brooming the floor and mopping the floor and doing the dishes continuously. There's just a point where we just have to accept it. This is what life is like. I was reading an article on Reddit the other day. I think it was Reddit, suggesting that life is a challenge. I like how they were. What I liked about the article on Reddit was that they were speaking of these conditions, the human condition that we all know about and are constrained by, and they were describing it as a vast unfairness about the world, which makes me laugh a little bit because reality is reality, and it's also quite neutral. And to sort of attribute to reality this idea of like betrayal, that reality has, say, betrayed human beings by um, making it harder to accomplish our goals. It's just a funny idea. I mean, who really blames the universe or blames reality? Reality is what it is. And I've gotten a lot of benefits from reality. Let me tell you, I think it's beautiful and intricate. And I spent my lifetime really as a scientist studying reality. And, I still acknowledge, I don't necessarily blame reality for anything. Reality changes at its own pace, and society changes at its own pace. None of us are individually responsible for it. you know Anyway, I am going to wrap up this video. It turns out that I'm having a fantastic time talking to you about the future and talking to you about patience and acceptance and their connection, their relationship to one another. I have a lot of wonderful things coming up for which I am planning. I've got, sheesh, I got concerts coming up. I've got travels coming up. I'm traveling to Albuquerque. I'm traveling to Santa Cruz. I'm already coming up with plans to visit with friends all over the country. And anyway, I just wanted to let you know about that. I have plans to go to amusement parks again, plans to go to water parks, plans to go to the beach this summer. I'm just gonna just. I also have plans to work out like a crazy man. I'm excited about weightlifting, more excited than I've ever been. So, Emily, I just want to let you know that I'm excited about life and passionate about it, and that I'm loving my interactions with you that I'm having every week in some form or another, even if it's just text messaging. I'm glad we've been able to section off a corner of our lives where we can communicate together. It makes me proud and makes me feel good about the way things are going. And I love that connection and mutuality between us. And I just want more of it. I think it's wonderful, and I long to know more about who you are. And I don't know. I'm excited about all kinds of changes that I see in the world. I love that I'm getting stronger and smarter and more handsome, more funny. Hopefully, I know that you are wishing I'm getting more funny. I'm kind of wishing that too, and I got my fingers crossed. Anyway, I hope you have a fantastic week, fantastic day, fantastic weekend, fantastic moment. Every moment that you are alive. And I'll talk to you later. Love you, girl. Bye bye.